Shadows in the void. The dying station groaned its mechanical death rattle as Darren guided his small transport to the docking clamps of Station Obsidian. 3 days of hard flying had burned through his fuel reserves faster than anticipated, and this abandoned waypoint was his only option before the void claimed him completely. The external lights flickered weakly, painting the docking bay in sickly amber pulses. Darren secured his vessel and stepped into the station proper, his breath misting in the cold, recycled air. The place had been deserted for months, maybe years, a casualty of the trade route shifts that left so many frontier stations to rot. His footsteps echoed through empty corridors as he made his way toward the fuel depot, hoping the automated system still functioned. Then he saw her. She lay crumpled near the entrance to an escape pod bay. Dark hair splayed across the dusty floor like spilled ink. Blood had dried in rusty patches on her torn clothing, and her breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. Darren's heart lurched. He dropped to his knees beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there, weak, but steady. "Hey," he said softly, brushing hair from her pale face. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, revealing dark eyes that struggled to focus. For a heartbeat they locked onto his, and something passed between them, a jolt of recognition that made no sense, as though his soul knew hers despite having never met. Then her eyes rolled back, and she went limp again. Darren didn't hesitate. He scooped her into his arms, surprised by how light she felt, how perfectly she seemed to fit against his chest. The unusual quality of her clothing registered dimly, too fine for a common traveler, the fabric shimmering even beneath the grime and blood. On her wrist, partially hidden by torn sleeves, he glimpsed what looked like an intricate tattoo or brand. He carried her swiftly back to his ship, his mind racing through medical protocols. The medbay was small but functional. He laid her carefully on the examination table, the overhead lights revealing the full extent of her injuries. Cuts and bruises marked her skin, and a deeper gash along her ribs needed immediate attention. As Darren worked through the night, cleaning wounds and applying synthetic skin, he found himself watching her face in the moments between tasks. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost ethereal, features delicate yet strong. Each time he touched her skin, to check vitals, to dress injuries, he felt that strange pull again, as though invisible threads were weaving between them. Near dawn, as he finished the last bandage, her hand twitched. Instinctively, he caught it in his own, steadying it. Her fingers curled weakly around his, and even unconscious, she seemed to lean toward his warmth. Darren settled into the chair beside the medbay table, unwilling to leave her alone. Whatever had brought this woman to Station Obsidian, whatever she was running from, had nearly killed her. But she was safe now. He would make sure of it. As artificial daylight began cycling through the ship's systems, her eyes opened again, clearer this time, fully aware. They found his face immediately, and in that moment of connection, both of them felt the world shift beneath them, though neither yet understood why.
Unveiled hearts. The next morning brought a shift in the atmosphere between them, something unspoken yet undeniable. Lyria had graduated from the medbay to the small cabin adjacent to Darren's quarters, and he'd brought her fresh bandages with breakfast. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed while he knelt before her, carefully unwrapping the dressing on her ribs. His hands moved with practiced precision, but she noticed the slight tremor in his fingers as they brushed her skin. The proximity was intoxicating. She could smell the clean scent of recycled soap on him, see the concentration in his furrowed brow, feel the warmth of his breath against her bare shoulder. "It's healing well," he murmured, applying fresh synthetic skin to the gash. His thumb traced the edge of the wound with feather-light pressure, and she shivered despite the ship's regulated temperature. "Darren," she said quietly. When he looked up, their faces were inches apart. "There's more I haven't told you." His hand stilled against her skin, but he didn't pull away. "You don't owe me your secrets." "Maybe not, but I want to give them to you anyway." She took a shaky breath, steeling herself. "My father is High Regent Castellan of the Sovereign Council. That makes me," she swallowed hard, "valuable property. They were arranging my marriage to a military commander twice my age, a strategic alliance to consolidate power. I refused. They locked me in the palace tower, so I stole an escort ship and ran." She waited for him to recoil, to see her differently, to calculate the danger she represented. Instead, Darren's hand came up to cup her face with heartbreaking tenderness. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I'm sorry they tried to take your choice away." The gentleness in his voice broke something inside her. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and he wiped them away with his thumbs, his touch reverent. She had expected judgment, or fear, or greed, the reactions she'd learned to anticipate from everyone in her orbit. But Darren looked at her the same way he had when she was just an injured stranger, with compassion and something deeper she was afraid to name. "They'll be looking for me, tracking me. If they find you with me, let them look." His voice was fierce now, protective. "You're not going back to that life. I won't let them take you." The conviction in his words sent heat spiraling through her chest. Before she could second-guess herself, Lyria closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. For a heartbeat, Darren froze in surprise. Then he responded with an intensity that stole her breath, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pressed carefully against her lower back, mindful of her injuries. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and longing pouring between them. She tasted desperation on his lips and matched it with her own, her fingers clutching the fabric of his shirt as though he might disappear if she let go. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darren rested his forehead against hers. "This is dangerous," he said, though his arms tightened around her. "Not just the people chasing you. This, us. I've never felt anything like this before, and it scares the hell out of me." "I know," Lyria whispered, her lips brushing his with each word. "I've spent my whole life being told what to feel, what to want, who to be. But this is the first real thing I've ever chosen for myself." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring rather than devouring. His hands explored the unmarred skin of her back, learning the curve of her spine, the map of her body. She gasped softly when his mouth traveled down the line of her jaw to the sensitive spot beneath her ear, and she felt him smile against her skin.
Beyond the horizon, the hyperspace tunnel carried them through folded space for 6 hours, putting systems and light years between them and the region's hunters. Darren set course for the Frontier Reach, a loose collection of independent colonies beyond the Council's jurisdiction, where questions weren't asked and pasts could be left behind. They spent that journey wrapped in each other's presence, the cockpit lights dim to let the swirling blue-white of hyperspace fill the small cabin. Lyria sat curled against Darren's side in the pilot's seat, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting over his heart. "Tell me about the Reach," she said quietly. "What's it like?" "Rough, honest, free." Darren's fingers traced idle patterns on her arm. "It's where people go when they don't fit anywhere else, when they need to build something new instead of inheriting something old. You'll like it, I think." "Will we be safe there?" He was quiet for a moment, considering. "Safer than anywhere under Council jurisdiction. Your family's reach doesn't extend that far. Too much effort for too little return. They'll keep looking, but eventually..." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Eventually, they'll have to accept you're gone." Lyria tilted her face up to look at him, her dark eyes reflecting the hyperspace glow. "And what happens to us? When we're there, when we're finally safe? What do you want to happen?" His voice was carefully neutral, but she could feel the tension in his body, the fear of hoping for too much. She sat up, turning to straddle his lap, her hands framing his face. "I want this. You. Every morning waking up beside you, every night falling asleep in your arms. I want to learn who I am when I'm not someone's daughter or someone's asset. I want to build a life that's mine. Ours. The vulnerability in her words made his chest ache. Darren pulled her close, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. That's all I want too. I've been drifting my whole life, and then I found you bleeding on that station floor. And suddenly, he struggled for words. Suddenly, I wasn't lost anymore. They kissed with the slow intensity of people who finally had time, who'd escaped death and chosen each other in the same breath. His hands slid under her shirt, mapping the healed skin where wounds had been, marveling at her resilience. She made soft sounds against his mouth, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressed flush against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, a chime announced their impending drop from hyperspace. Darren gently shifted Lyria back to the co-pilot's seat, though his arm found hers immediately, their fingers interlacing as naturally as breathing. Ready? She squeezed his hand. With you? Always. Reality reasserted itself with a gentle lurch. The viewport filled with a vista that stole Lyria's breath. A cluster of habitats and stations orbiting a rust-red planet, ships of every size and description moving between them like a choreographed dance. The frontier reach, the edge of civilization, the beginning of everywhere else. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's home, Darren replied, then corrected himself with a smile that transformed his whole face. Your home. He guided them toward the largest habitat, a sprawling station called Haven's Gate, where they could register for residency and find work. As they approached, Lyria noticed the diversity of the ships around them. Colony transports, mining vessels, scientific survey craft, and even a few pleasure yachts whose owners had fled to the frontier for their own reasons. No one here would care that she was Lyria Castellan, runaway princess. She could be just Lyria, whoever she chose that mean to be. They docked smoothly, and as the airlock pressurized, Darren stood and extended his hand to her. Welcome to the rest of our lives. Lyria took his hand and let him pull her close one more time. Thank you, she said simply, for finding me, for saving me, for choosing me. Always, he promised, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like freedom and starlight and tomorrow. Together they walked down the boarding ramp into the bustling chaos of Haven's Gate. Nobody looked twice at them, just another couple among thousands seeking fortune or escape or simply a place to belong. Darren kept Lyria's hand firmly in his as they navigated the crowds, already planning. They'd need quarters, work, new identification. They'd build a life piece by piece, the way he'd always fixed broken things, with patience, care, and steady hands. That night, in a small rented room overlooking the central plaza, they lay tangled together in the narrow bed, exhausted but content. Through the viewport, unfamiliar constellations wheeled overhead, strange and beautiful and full of promise. I love you, she whispered into the darkness, testing the word she'd never been allowed to say before. Darren's arms tightened around her, his lips finding her temple. I love you too, and tomorrow and every day after that. She smiled against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward it, toward a future she'd choose herself, toward mornings filled with his smile and nights wrapped in his warmth, toward a love that was hers alone. Outside, the frontier stretched endless and wild. Inside, two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds held fast, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. The last light of Station Obsidian had faded far behind them, but ahead, a new dawn was rising, bright and boundless, and entirely their own.